I don't think Beaton is a photographer. I think he's amazing. I think he's creative genius. I think his life story is fascinating. I think everything about him is interesting. But he's just using photography in the way he's using his palette of crayons. He's just messing around.
Funnily enough, I couldn't agree with you more, which is probably not what you wanted.
That's not very helpful. Hello and welcome to Double Exposure,
the podcast that brings you a new angle on life through photography and the lens of photographers.
Each week we'll pick a topic, share stories, investigate each other's views, answer a listener's question, maybe get some top tips, and find out what's going on generally.
And I'm Hugo Burnand.
And I'm Cambridge Jones.
And this week we are going to talk about Cecil Beaton.
Oh yes. Okay, so Cecil Beaton.
Yeah.
I'm going to need your help unravelling this, and for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
You, in some ways, he presumably parallels your life. There is an episode kind of from Beaton to Burnand, because you both start in the same school, you both end up doing royalty, you've done famous people, you're in high society. So there's something very, very sort of... There's a parallel
Beaton
universe.
to Burnand.
Yeah, I think there's a Beaton to Burnand thing going on.
And can you see your own career threaded through?
So that's the other weird thing. I'm kind of doing my research. I know I'm going to come and talk to you. I'm slightly kind of feeling at a disadvantage because I know that you kind of are on a parallel course. And then I start thinking, hang on a minute. If you took Hugo's career and my career and put them in a blender and pressed zzz, you'd kind of end up with Cecil Beaton, because and we'll come to the reasons for that. But I think there's a very interesting interwoven path.
Do you know what I love about AI? Is could we put all that information in there and then just see what image it comes up with? Bit like, and I won't go there. Right.
One of the things, just quickly before we even get into the details.
Who is Beaton?
Yeah, but he is one of the world's most photographed photographers, I discovered. Do you know? Guess how many portraits the National Portrait Gallery has by other people and himself?
I don't know.
360.
That's amazing. And what is also amazing about that is and he took a lot of self-portraits as well, but my favourite portrait of Cecil Beaton is by Irving Penn. It is absolutely fantastic.
Spooky, because I stopped at that. I took a photo of it. And I thought, let's have a look at that.
I mean, it's very regal. Yeah. It's a bit like the Anagoni painting of Her Majesty the Queen, the late Queen. But I think that was very befitting of Cecil Beaton, considering his career with the royal family. But it is a wonderful portrait of a man, and it's a beautiful expression. And it's strong. There is a single light coming in from, I'm going to say a north light coming in from the right. And the shadows are quite strong. And a man can take good shadows like that.
Do you know why you and I both stopped at this photograph? I'm going to give you a theory in a minute. But it's quite early on in the exhibition.
Yeah.
And this is the theory I'm going to investigate with you over the course of this episode. I don't think Beaton is a photographer. I think he's amazing. I think he's creative genius. I think his life story is fascinating. I think everything about him is interesting. But he's just using photography in the way he's using his palette of crayons. He's just messing around.
Funnily enough, I couldn't agree with you more, which is probably not what you wanted.
That's not very helpful.
I think he is a fantastic artist, or was a fantastic artist. And what I love about the exhibition that we've both been to individually is actually it allows us to see the artistic talent in there. His ability to see a line and to recreate it either with a pencil or with a watercolour brush is phenomenal. And when you look at the range of his career, which includes winning an Oscar for the design of the clothes in My Fair Lady, that really illustrates what a fantastic artist he was.
And costumes and sets and sketches.
And he was a man of his time, and photography was the big new medium.
There's a lovely thing in... actually, I've got it here. Do you know those old face-to-face black and white interviews with John Freeman, who I think was the British ambassador to America or something? And he did these interviews where he literally points a camera in your face, so it's really uncomfortable, and then says, I'm going to ask you really personal questions, and the power of television made people answer honestly. And there is one of these with Cecil Beaton.
Oh, wow, that's great.
And Cecil Beaton is asked to he says, basically by John Freeman, he says, you have been, so imagine your camera's right in your face, and John Freeman says, you have been described as an author, a designer, a painter, a writer, a sketcher, a theatre designer. Which of these is your main profession? And Cecil Beaton says, I wish I knew. But, he's quite late in his career at this point. So you think he might by now say, I'm a photographer.
Yeah.
Who was it that said, was it Norman Parkinson who said, we owe Cecil Beaton's a great debt. We used to, as photographers, we used to have to go in the back tradesman's entrance, and now we can go in the front door.
Oh, brilliant.
Like, so in a sense, we owe him a great debt because he's made us respectful.
But following on from that photograph of him, I'd like to show, this is a watercolour, pencil, ink and watercolour that he did of Princess Natalie Paley, Paley,
right.
a granddaughter of Tsar Alexander. And it just shows his ability to see a line. It's a fashion watercolour in a way.
Can I just say one thing? In doing some research and looking at pictures for this episode, we've done this time and time again. I was struck by this morning. Yeah. I literally stared at it and thought, oh my God, he's good. So what I'm saying is I love the way that you and I individually end up at the same choices without ever comparing. Yeah. Okay, so how would we describe that?
It's almost, it's a very elegant woman with her hair brushed back, and it's like a monochromatic photograph in that it is really only two colours, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's flesh tones with black.
Yeah.
That's it. But the line of her hands as they lie on top of each other on the back of the sofa, which she's leaning against, and her eyes are up towards the camera. I mean, you could use that as a textbook guide on how to do a portrait photograph. The shadowing on the side of her face to give her cheekbones, the eyes are up. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. But this line he is able to capture, he captures with a camera as well.
Yeah.
And his early work, before he became known, was very theatrical. He lived in a good set, a good crowd of people, and he was able to get fairly, shall we say, camp, exuberant, extrovert people to pose for him.
Well, let's look at what you've just said, because I think it's incredibly interesting. He just to put for the listeners to put this in perspective, he does end up in that extraordinary world with who knows everyone who knows everyone, but he doesn't start there, and he actually is from a relatively sort of, humble's the wrong word, but a pretty straightforward middle class family. His father's a timber merchant. They're living in Hampstead. He's obsessed by the fact he doesn't have enough money, and his mother is not glamorous in society, and he's given a camera. He's actually given a Box Brownie and messes around with it. But then at the age 12, he's given the camera we see in the exhibition.
In the exhibition, in a glass case. And I love this because actually they also have the Oscar.
But the fascinating thing about this camera is it's not a particularly astonishing piece of kit, but he keeps using this camera he was given age 12, we repeat, right up until he's working at Vogue.
Yeah.
And just think, you and I would not have done that.
Yeah.
And he really reluctantly gives this camera up for a more medium format camera when Vogue New York say that's not okay.
But you know why that is? I mean, it's like sometimes I'm offered new cameras or equipment to use on a shoot. And my thing is, why would you, if you were playing tennis in a Wimbledon final, why just before the final would you change your tennis racket?
Yeah, because you know it works.
You know, a good photographer talks to his camera and his camera talks to him in a way, you know when it's having a good day or a bad day.
Can I say a terrible thing though?
What?
There were some early pictures in the exhibition where I did wish he was using a better camera.
Anything to do with focus?
Yeah. So let's quickly carry on with this story. So but his other great advantage, he's got this camera, he's got two very beautiful sisters.
Yeah.
And he basically gets them to pose for him in all sorts of kind of glamorous, and what he's unbelievably the master of is creativity within the frame. What's he going to use? How's he going to set them up? How's he going to light them? How's he going to position them? And he uses these two sisters essentially to start developing his own style and experimenting with creativity. Still not thinking he's a photographer. He's interested in the whole...
It's really interesting, that point, because while I do like looking at those pictures, and I really admire that he was always true to himself, Cecil Beaton, he had such a strong character and such a strong idea that a lot of those photographs feel so Cecil Beaton-esque that you don't get a sense of the person he's photographing. Whereas a true portrait, actually you feel that the person in the photograph is giving you as much as the photographer.
And he says that. He says, I'm not particularly interested in bringing out the character of the person. I'm interested in the kind of beauty of the whole creation. He actually does say that.
Which is no bad thing. And that is the artist photographer coming out. Fantastic.
Okay, so we're now looking at a much later photo from Hollywood, when he visits Hollywood, and we're looking at John Wayne sitting sort of on a set against some wooden slats and a step ladder, and that is beautiful, and that is a proper photograph,
isn't it? A proper
lit.
portrait, everything, and it's of the time as well. The Hollywood hero lighting coming from behind John Wayne, lighting up his shoulder and the back of his hair, the front light giving him beautiful sculpting on his face and everything.
I read a beautiful quote from him really early on in his diaries, because he also is a diarist, and he published expurgated versions of his diaries, and then later the unexpurgated versions where he really lets rip.
I don't believe all his diaries, by the way, but I'll let you read.
But he says about himself, well, we can come back to why you don't believe it, but this is what he says of himself. I don't want people to know me as I really am, but as I am trying and pretending to be. I want to be Cecil Beaton. And he is Cecil Beaton, but he's created this version of himself, and he's going to spend his life quite fast. I mean, the acceleration of the speed from this boy of 12 being given a camera through, and we can break these things up, but essentially through school at Harrow, where you were, and which he did not enjoy, to Cambridge, to London, to New York. I mean, it's the speed with which he does this is mind-blowing. So he is a man with a determination and an aspiration which he makes happen. And he does do it, as you said, by making sure he knows all the right people.
Yeah. Can I tell you why I mistrust some of the diaries?
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons why you very kindly said there are similarities in our career paths is he got to photograph the coronation that happened before the coronation that I photographed. He did all the official portraits for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation.
Right.
And somewhere in his diaries, apparently, between the ceremony and returning to Buckingham Palace to take the photographs, he had time to go home and have a nap. I just do not believe it.
Wait a minute, that's the kind of thing you do regularly.
No, not
the similarities are becoming more and more extraordinary.
There's no way he could have done that. There's no way he could have been relaxed enough to have a nap. But it made a good story at the time, and maybe I don't know, and maybe it is true, but I find it very difficult to believe. And he also took an extraordinary large number of photographs in Buckingham Palace on the day of the coronation, and that was phenomenal in itself, how he kept the energy going. Right. And the range of photographs he took.
It was very, very surprising, apparently, that the Queen Elizabeth II, and indeed her mother, asked him to come in and start taking pictures. Do you know why?
Well, there was a little bit of professional jealousy going on between various photographers, wasn't there? And didn't Duke of Edinburgh have something to do with it as well?
It's because he'd photographed the wedding of Edward and Mrs. Simpson, and they were not happy about this, and they were angry at the time.
Right. And
they kind of because he became such a phenomenon, they said, "Oh, we'll have him in." And then he developed a brilliant relationship with them and follows them. I mean, what's amazing if you look at his photos is his photos of Prince Charles age 5 onwards, isn't it?
Yes, but it all started with the Queen Mother. Interestingly, I was rather disappointed at how that there was in this exhibition there was no reference to his coronation photographs, which was a major part of his career.
So let's briefly touch on this. So this exhibition is put together by Robin Muir from Condé Nast, and Robin Muir put together two things to say about Beaton. He is the first photographer ever to be exhibited at the National Portrait Gallery. Extraordinary in itself. 600 photos, I think. No, that's the previous. So maybe 600 photos.
While he was alive?
While he was alive. I mean, it's groundbreaking. It's
Yeah.
like photography is, as you and I know, it's not an art form taken that seriously in the United Kingdom for whatever reasons. But he was the first one to sort of break the taboo. But the other thing I want to say quickly is that Robin Muir, who has curated this exhibition, curated an exhibition of Cecil Beaton just before COVID. And I think I saw it. I think it opened and closed. And this particular exhibition we are now talking about, and this is important in a sense when we're trying to understand this, is deliberately trying to be his fashion.
I get that. I get that.
So there are stuff that isn't in it. So
I know, but in this exhibition, there is war.
Yes, it's true.
There is Hollywood.
That is true.
There is social. There's a lot, but there's nothing about the coronation, which I just found one picture. Anyway, this picture of the Queen Mother. It is a beautiful portrait.
Yeah.
And it's one of, I think, two photographs of the British royal family. The other one's of Princess Margaret. But she does look, I mean, he actually calls it the fairy queen.
Yeah.
And the important thing is he was asked to take a photo shoot that went for 20 minutes. That's how much time he was given. And actually they got on so well that shoot went on for 4 hours. Yeah. And there's a lot of photographs from it, but it was that shoot that got him into the family and
for decades.
For decades, yeah. He was a tiny
Remind you
bit,
of anyone?
He was a tiny bit waspish when the relationship ended, and if you read his diaries, he wasn't.
Why did it end? Do we know?
No, I don't. No. But do you know why his career at Condé Nast ended?
Yes.
That is one thing I learned from the exhibition, which I didn't know about, having worked at Condé Nast myself for 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. They actually have the letter.
So we should explain to listeners about this. It's quite extraordinary because he's now riding high. Everybody wants to know him. Everybody wants to be photographed him. And what is it? He's actually drawing something.
The artist in him is doing a fashion story that is painted rather than photographed, as far as I understand.
And embedded almost in microprint, he writes something anti-Semitic, hidden in this thing. And it's published, and it goes out, and then somebody spots it. And I think they pulp something like 180,000 copies.
Yeah.
Or is it Vogue?
Yeah.
And that's it. And as you say, then there's this letter which comes from...
and it might not have actually been words, it might have been an icon or something. But anyway, it was pretty subtle, and he claims he had no idea. And that has happened. Famous people today get called up on things which they didn't realise.
True.
So it could have been completely innocent.
But the guy from Condé Nast is at the opera, gets a message, has to leave the opera to come and deal with the situation. And that's the letter they publish in the exhibition, basically saying it's over. You're toast. Can't do that. Not okay.
But good on him. He always remained true to himself, and it didn't damage his lifetime achievement, and he went on to win an Oscar.
So let's quickly go back to his sort of story. So he's doing his family, blah, blah, blah. He goes to Harrow. He doesn't much like Harrow. I think because he's not free to do whatever he likes. But he goes to Cambridge as a student who really wasn't performing well at school, which tells you something about the era. It's like, oh yeah, well, you have a place at Cambridge, why not? Anyway, the thing about Cambridge, I think, is that he doesn't really study. He spends his entire life in the theatrical group and the aesthetic movement. And he's basically, and designed stuff for the Cambridge Footlights, even in those days. And he's all about the theatre and the costumes and the stuff. And that is where he meets some of the people that when he comes out of Cambridge and comes to, and is in London society, really propel him forward very, very fast.
Yes. No, he was a good networker.
Yeah.
He really knew how to network.
And I think the real key person who changes it is Stephen Tennant, who's presumably one of the bright young things, is he? And they I don't know how you describe the bright young things. Rich people having a good time, dressing in fancy clothes. But it's extraordinary because by becoming part of that set, suddenly he knows everybody. And within a year or two, no, I think within 18 months, he's been published in Vogue because now he knows everybody.
Yeah.
And he has his very first exhibition in a gallery in Mayfair in about 1928, say, and he only left Cambridge in 1927.
Yeah.
So he's going some.
Yeah.
Can I just remind you of what he said about Evelyn Waugh? He says, "Evelyn Waugh is my enemy. We dislike each other intensely. And, oh brother, I feel the same way about him." Well, you would if you like each other intensely, wouldn't you? But he really did have an acid tongue when he wanted to. And there were quite, including Elizabeth Taylor, he did not get on with.
Ah, really? Well, you have an amazing picture of Elizabeth Taylor. Not your
But
picture, taken by Cecil Beaton, which I'd love to bring up. So, yes, Elizabeth Taylor. He photographed her. They had... they just didn't like each other from the beginning.
Yeah, he thought she was trumped up, more self-important, thought she was the star. By now he thinks he's the star. It's not going well.
And funny enough, actually, I've never thought about this before, but they both sort of became stars young in their lives.
Yeah.
She was so staggeringly beautiful with the most incredible eyes.
Yeah.
And what I do like about this portrait is she does look beautiful. And I want to bring something back from some of our previous episodes. Her smaller eye is towards the camera.
Very good.
We have not broken the line of the cheek with her nose.
Very good.
Her shoulders one is towards the camera. Everything about that is like a classic portrait.
Yeah.
And she looks beautiful in it.
And very natural.
But is there a look of slight disdain or contempt from Elizabeth Taylor towards Cecil Beaton?
Now, I don't know how this picture came about because I know that he'd asked to photograph her and she said, yes, of course, that will be $50,000 or something.
Right.
And that hadn't happened. But clearly something did happen later and he did get to photograph her. The same thing happens with Marilyn Monroe. He's very keen to have Marilyn Monroe because she is now everywhere. She's just coming to be everything. And he's very, very keen to have her in his next book and his exhibition. And he eventually gets to photograph her because... Laurence Olivier is about to do a play with her in New York and he manages to get them to come to his suite in the hotel. And I think this is really interesting. And of all the things I researched about him, one of the most extraordinary things is his shoot with Marilyn Monroe. He only met her once.
Right.
There are about 40 amazing pictures of her.
Mm-hmm.
She apparently arrives at his hotel suite and is kind of a bit shy, a bit demure, a bit giggly. And he's not entirely sure that he says later she's a very strange construction and this is not going to end well. He says that in his diary. It's quite prescient.
Yeah.
But what I think is most extraordinary, and let's talk about this particular picture, is the number of great photographs he managed to take. He built in that short space of time an incredible rapport with her, and uses every square inch of his suite to take these different photos, which look like they were taken over 10 years.
Well, what is interesting, and I'm now going to contradict myself.
Okay.
I said his earlier portraits very much felt like they were Cecil Beaton's idea of that person. They might have been bursting through paper, wearing hats, lots of flowers, bubble wrap, whatever it was. But this picture of Marilyn, and she's leaning back in a chair. She is wearing just a black bra, it looks like. And slightly in shock, she's holding her hands in front of her mouth and looking straight into the camera lens. And it's a very tender portrait.
It's so much not a moment. It's almost like she's going, what are we going to do next?
Oh, really? I feel much more like you've seen more of me than I want to know about. That's what I feel. Yeah. It's like, Cecil... I thought we weren't going to go there, sort of thing. I just see vulnerability, and yet still, because of the shape of her body, we know without a moment's doubt that is Marilyn Monroe. So I consider that to be a really good portrait.
I agree. Yeah. And this is the confounding thing about Beaton. He is all these different things, and he can take some of the most extraordinary portraits. Yeah, but that's not his primary interest. So sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't.
You know, we always say that we photographers are our own worst critics of our own work.
Yeah.
There is this portrait of Cecil Beaton taken as a self-portrait. Must be on a. It's almost as if he is looking at himself in the mirror of an armoire, wardrobe, or whatever, dressing table. And it is so Cecil Beaton in that it is absolutely filled with florals and flowers and swirls and rococo and baroque. And then he's standing there in the middle. We're meant to believe that we're looking in a mirror. But I think he's actually taken the mirror out and gone and stood behind it. And one hand on shoulder, one hand sort of... it's so camp. And it's so sad in a way because I don't really like it as a portrait.
No.
And it's not how I want to see him or remember him.
Well, what about the one of him as King Canute?
Well, you see, that I find absolutely hysterical.
He's basically sitting in a deck chair with a crown, telling the waves to stop coming in. A man with greater ambition, it would be hard to find.
Yes. I mean, it's brilliant and it's funny and it's amusing and I prefer it. And if that was the only picture I had of Cecil Beaton, I'd be happy.
Can I just flip the conversation for a second? And something occurred to me, and you may know more than I do on this. Because when he arrives at Vogue in America, he's got to deal with Edward Steichen, who we've come across before, who's kind of a formidable photographer. And I can never pronounce this guy, George Honiggenhoen.
Brilliant, well said.
Something like that. So these guys are genuinely masters of their craft. They're striding the halls of Condé Nast, and in comes this British upstart with a kind of I understand theatre and I'll revolutionise your pictures. But to me, what's extraordinary is he's not really intimidated by these people. And if you look at their work, it is death-defyingly good. And so I did an interesting thing this morning. I Googled what the maximum value of any of these photographers' work was.
Ooh.
So Edward Steichen tops out at about 11.8 million for a print.
Ooh.
This is a man that Cecil Beaton couldn't really be bothered with. He does the photos, I'll do the creativity. Whereas I think Cecil Beaton tops out at a few thousand. Interestingly. So in the photography art collecting world, he hasn't cut it. In some way. I mean, clearly he has. And we both love many, many things about him. But there is an interesting thing going on.
Funnily enough, what I'm going to say right now, and it's maybe not why you wanted to leave me, but I don't care.
No, I agree with that too.
I take photographs for the sake of taking photographs.
Totally
and I want to confess, this photograph here, this was a theme that he went back to. He did this with Edith Sitwell as well. He did it with a few people. And I'd like to show you now this picture of mine here, which I obviously have taken straight from Cecil Beaton.
Let's look at that. Because I was just going to say, when we say anything slightly disparaging, we are also simultaneously saying we owe him so much.
Oh, yeah.
We wouldn't be here in our current roles without him pushing the boundaries, breaking the rules, experimenting with this. So one can joke about it that he isn't a photographer. He's also the reason we're here.
Yeah. And this picture of mine is a friend of mine, Rose Nugent, who was an artist and carving a career for herself, and she was living in Vietnam. And the one thing she couldn't get enough of in Vietnam was decent paper.
Okay.
So what I thought would be funny is to take the Cecil Beaton influence, push her through ample paper, and then we shoved these paintbrushes in her hair, which she painted with, which almost gave her a Madonna-like image.
When you took it, did you know that you had Cecil Beaton in your head?
Totally. But I want to do better than Cecil.
Well, it is at times it's possible to do better than Cecil, and at other times it's like wow.
But his experimental stuff was fantastic in the early years, and this is obviously something that was very experimental. It's 3 images of the same person. Again, I haven't got the name written down here, and it's of a woman looking up, and it's the line of the throat, the chin, the nose, and the forehead, and he's repeating repeated it 3 times on the page, and it is so beautiful, and it shows his ability to see the line, the aquiline beauty, and experiment a little bit with photography. And while a lot of his work is in black and white, what this exhibition shows us is when colour came along, he had to embrace it, and he did resist to start off with.
Let's use that moment to say we've got more to talk about than we thought with Cecil Beaton.
Okay.
So I think we should say we're going to have a part 2 on this because we're still going. So listeners, please join us again to talk more about Cecil Beaton. But before we go, should we do a listener's question, a top tip?
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, I would like to read a quote from him as my top tip, which I think is extraordinary. He says, on learning photography, you can't teach people photography. They've got to learn how to do it the best way possible for them. They can learn from looking at pictures taken by well-known people, but they don't really get intimate with the medium until they've made a few bad shots. I totally agree with him on this.
Well, yes.
You've got to go out there and do it and make a mess
I mean,
of it.
You know my love of horses.
Yeah.
You can't really call yourself a good rider until you've fallen off a few times.
Right.
So it's the same with photography. You have to know what the rules are and break them and see what the results are.
Yeah.
And then learn.
Yeah. Do you have a Beaton-esque top tip?
It's sort of, and it's in admiration of him. He was always true to himself. And as a photographer or an artist or anything else, be true to yourself. Don't try to always be photographing for the editor or the art director or whatever. Sometimes you just have to take the photograph because you saw something and you want that picture. Be true to yourself.
I love that.
I've got a listener's question.
Great.
Which is, how can I improve the composition in my photographs?
Very good. Do you want to take that first?
Well, this is a very straightforward thing, is when you're looking through the lens or the eyepiece, not only should you look at your subject, which may not be central, might be central, you should always look through the photograph and check out the background.
Yeah.
It might be that there's a telegraph pole coming out of their head or a drain pipe coming out of their shoulder. Always look beyond the subject.
That's good.
And that's one way of improving the composition.
Because I was going to almost go, it's the same thing, but in reverse. I was going to say, take everything else out, which is very Bailey-esque. It's like, don't have stuff in there unless you want it. So start with a white background or a plain background and then decide what you want in it.
Yeah. So in Bailey's style, get rid of all the background and foreground and just have the subject matter. Or look at the background, the middle ground and the foreground. And the 3 have to work together to improve the composition.
I love that. And sometimes that can be luck. You can just look at it and go, oh, that telegraph pole is perfect, the way that he or she is leaning against it.
Yeah.
Great. Good answers. So we're going to come back to Beaton, part 2. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Hugo and Jones or YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Do like us. Do send us more questions. Then he can answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.